century. 24. Due to Pope Sylvester II's reintroduction of the abacus with modifications, it became widely used in Europe again during the 11th century. 25. 26. This abacus used beads on wires, unlike the traditional Roman counting boards, which meant the abacus could be used much faster and was more easily moved. 27. Writing in the 1st century BC, Horace refers to the wax abacus, a board covered with a thin layer of black wax on which columns and figures were inscribed using a stylus. 28. One example of archaeological evidence of the Roman abacus, shown nearby in reconstruction, dates to the 1st century AD. It has 8 long grooves containing up to 5 beads in each and 8 shorter grooves shaving either 1 or no beads in each. The groove marked I indicates units, x10s, and so on up to millions. The beads in the shorter grooves denote 5s, 5 units, 5 tens, etc., essentially in a biquinary coded decimal system, related to the Roman numerals. The short grooves on the right may have been used for marking Roman ounces, i.e. fractions. India. The Abhiyamakopaya of Vajubandhu, 316 to 396, a Sanskrit work on Buddhist philosophy, says that 2nd century CE philosopher Vajumitra said that placing a wick, Sanskrit Vartik, on the number on, eka, means it is a 1, while placing the wick on the number 100 means it is called 100, and on the number 1000 means it is 1000. It is unclear exactly what this arrangement may have been. Around the 5th century, Indian clerks were already finding new ways of recording the contents of the abacus. 29. Hindu texts used the term nya, 0, to indicate the empty column on the abacus. 30. Japan. Japanese soroban. In Japan, the abacus is called soroban, lit counting tray. It was imported from China in the 14th century. 31. It was probably in use by the working class a century or more before the ruling class adopted it, as the class structure obstructed such changes. 32. The 1:4 abacus, which removes the seldom used 2nd and 5th bead, became popular in the 1940s. Today's Japanese abacus is a 1:4 type, 4-bead abacus, introduced from China in the Muromachi era. It adopts the form of the upper deck 1 bead and the bottom 4 beads. The top bead on the upper deck was equal to 5 and the bottom 1 is similar to the Chinese or Korean abacus, and the decimal number can be expressed, so the abacus is designed as a 1:4 device. The beads are always in the shape of adamant. The quotient division is generally used instead of the division method, at the same time. In order to make the multiplication and division digits consistently use the division multiplication. Later, Japan had a 3:5 abacus called, which is now in the Izronji collection of Shansi village in Yamagata City. Japan also used a 2:5 type abacus. The 4-bead abacus spread, and became common around the world. Improvements to the Japanese abacus arose in various places. In China, an aluminium frame plastic bead abacus was used. The file is next to the 4 beads, and pressing the clearing button put the upper bead in the upper position, and the lower bead in the lower position. The abacus is still manufactured in Japan even with the proliferation, practicality, and affordability of pocket electronic calculators. The use of the soroban is still taught in Japanese primary schools as part of mathematics, primarily as an aid to faster mental calculation. Using visual imagery can complete a calculation as quickly as a physical instrument. 33. Korea. The Chinese abacus migrated from China to Korea around 1400 AD. 1834-35. Koreans call it jupan, supan, or jusan. 36. The 4 beads abacus, 1:4, was introduced during the Goryeo dynasty. The 5-1 abacus was introduced to Korea from China during the Ming Dynasty. Native America. Representation of an Inca quipu. Some sources mention the use of an abacus called an abacules in ancient Aztec culture. 37. This Meso-Mercian abacus used a 5-digit base 20 system. 38. The word nefuel Nepalati comes from Nahuatl, for me by the roots, ne personal, fuel or fuli, pauli, the count, and Simpson, T Simpson, small similar elements. Its complete meaning was taken as, counting with small similar elements. Its use was taught in the Karmekak to the Tumapok, who were students dedicated to taking the counts of skies, from childhood. The nefuel was divided into 2 main parts separated by a bar or intermediate chord. In the left part were 4 beads. Beads in the first row have unitary values, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and on the right side, 3 beads had values of 5, 10, and 15, respectively. In order to know the value of the respective beads of the upper rows, it is in to multiply by 20, by each row, the value of the corresponding count in the first row. The device featured 13 rows with 7 beads, 91 in total. This was a basic number for this culture. It had a close relation to natural phenomena, the underworld, and the cycles of the heavens. 1 nefuel 91, represented the number of days that a season of the year lasts. 2 nefuel 182, is the number of days of the corn cycle, from its sowing to its harvest. 3 nefuel 273, is the number of days of a baby's gestation, and 4 nefuel 364, completed a cycle and approximated 1 year. When translated into modern computer arithmetic, the nefuel amounted to the rank from 10 to 18 in floating point, which precisely calculated large and small amounts, although round-off was not allowed. A yapana as used by the Incas. The rediscovery of the nefuel was due to the Mexican engineer David Esparza Hidalgo, 39, who in his travels throughout Mexico found diverse engravings and paintings of this instrument and reconstructed several of them in gold, jade, incrustations of shell, etc. 40. Very old nefuel are attributed to the Olmec culture, and some bracelets of Mayan origin, as well as a diversity of forms and materials in other cultures. Sanchez wrote in Arithmetic in Maya that another base 5, base 4 abacus had been found in the Yucatan Peninsula that also computed calendar data. This was a finger abacus. On one hand, 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4 were used, and on the other hand 0, 1, 2, and 3 were used. Note the use of 0 at the beginning and end of the 2 cycles. The quipu of the Incas was a system of colored knotted cords used to record numerical data. 41, like advanced tally sticks but not used to perform calculations. Calculations were carried out using a yapana, Quechua for counting tool, see figure, which was still in use after the conquest of Peru. The working principle of a yapana is unknown, but in 2001 Italian mathematician De Pasquale proposed an explanation. By comparing the form of several yapanas, researchers found that calculations were based using the Fibonacci sequence 1, 1, 2, 3, 5 and powers of 10, 20, and 40 as place values for the different fields in the instrument. Using the Fibonacci sequence would keep the number of grains within any one field at a minimum. 42. Russia. Russian Scotty. The Russian abacus, the Scotty, Russian, plural from Russian, counting, usually has a single slanted deck, with 10 beads on each wire, except one wire with 4 beads for quarter-ruble fractions. Older models have another 4-bead wire for Carter kopecks, which were minted until 1916. The Russian abacus is often used vertically, with each wire running horizontally. Few wires are usually bound upward in the center, to keep the beads pinned to either side. It is cleared when all the beads are moved to the right. During manipulation, beads are moved to the left. For easy viewing, the middle two beads on each wire, the fifth and sixth bead, usually are of a different color from the other 8. Likewise, the left bead of the thousandths wire, and the million wire, if present, may have a different color. The Russian abacus was in use in shops and markets throughout the former Soviet Union, and its usage was taught in most schools until the 1990s. 43, 44, even the 1874 invention of mechanical calculator, ordinary arithmometer, had not replaced them in Russia, according to Yakov Perelman. Some businessmen attempting to import calculators into the Russian Empire were known to leave in despair after watching a skilled abacus operator. 45. Likewise, the mass production of Felix arithmometers since 1924 did not significantly reduce abacus use in the Soviet Union. 46. The Russian abacus began to lose popularity only after the mass production of domestic microcalculators in 1974. The Russian abacus was brought to France around 1820 by mathematician Jean-Victor Poncelet, who had served in Napoleon's army and had been a prisoner of war in Russia. 47. The abacus had fallen out of use in Western Europe in the 16th century with the rise of decimal notation and algorithmic methods. 2. Poncelet's French contemporaries, it was something new. Poncelet used it, not for any applied purpose, but as a teaching and demonstration aid. 48. The Turks and the Armenian people used abacuses similar to the Russian Scotty. It was named Akaba by the Turks and Achoreb by the Armenians. 49. School abacus. Early 20th century abacus used in Danish elementary school. A 20-bead reconrec around the world. Abacuses have been used in preschools and elementary schools as an aid in teaching the numeral system and arithmetic. In Western countries, a bead frame similar to the Russian abacus but with straight wires and a vertical frame is common. See image. The wire frame may be used either with positional notation like other abacuses. Thus the 10-wire version may represent numbers up to 9,999,999,999, or each bead may represent 1 unit. For example, 74 can be represented by shifting a beads on 7 wires and 4 beads on the 8th wire. So numbers up to 100 may be represented. In the bead frame shown, the gap between the 5th and 6th wire, corresponding to the color change between the 5th and the 6th bead on each wire, suggests the latter use. Teaching multiplication, E.G.6 times 7, may be represented by shifting 7 beads on 6 wires. The red and white abacus is used in contemporary primary schools for a wide range of number-related lessons. The 20-bead version, referred to by its Dutch name rekenrek, calculating frame, is often used, either on a string of beads or on a rigid framework. 50. Feynman vs. the abacus. Physicist Richard Feynman was noted for facility in mathematical calculations. He wrote about an encounter in Brazil with a Japanese abacus expert, who challenged him to speed contests between Feynman's pen and paper, and the abacus. The abacus was much faster for addition, somewhat faster for multiplication, but Feynman was faster at division. When the abacus was used for a really difficult challenge, i.e. cube roots, Feynman won easily. However, the number chosen at random was close to a number Feynman happened to know was an exact cube, allowing him to use approximate methods. 51. Neurological analysis. Learning how to calculate with the abacus may improve capacity for mental calculation. Abacus-based mental calculation, AMC, which was derived from the abacus, is the act of performing calculations including addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, in the mind by manipulating an imagined abacus. It is a high-level cognitive skill that runs calculations with an effective algorithm. People doing long-term AMC training show higher numerical memory capacity and experience more effectively connected neural pathways. 52, 53. They are able to retrieve memory to deal with complex processes. 54. AMC involves both visuospatial and visuomotor processing that generate the visual abacus and move the imaginary beads. 55. Since it only requires that the final position of beads be remembered, it takes less memory and less computation time. 55. Renaissance abacuses. Gregorius, Margarita Philosophica, 1508, 1230 x 1615. .png. Regentis.png. Regnung auf der Linehen und Fäden.jpg. Ka Bell Ba Skentain 1514.jpg. Regnung auf der Linehen 1525 Adam Rees.png. 1543 Robert Record.png. Peter Apian 1544.png. Adam Reeson.jpg. Rekenar 1553.jpg. Binary abacus. Two binary abacuses constructed by Dr. Robert C. Good, Jr. made from two Chinese abacuses. The binary abacus is used to explain how computers manipulate numbers. 56. The abacus shows how numbers, letters, and signs can be stored in a binary system on a computer, or via ASCII. The device consists of a series of beads and parallel wires arranged in 3 separate rows. The beads represent a switch on the computer in either an on or off position. Visually impaired users. An adapted abacus, invented by Tim Cranmer, and called a Cranmer abacus, is commonly used by visually impaired users. A piece of soft fabric or rubber is placed behind the beads, keeping them in place while the users manipulated them. The device is then used to perform the mathematical functions of multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, square root, and cube root. 57. Although blind students have benefited from talking calculators, the abacus is often taught to these students in early grades. 58. Blind students can also complete mathematical assignments using a braille writer and Nemeth code, a type of braille code for mathematics, but large multiplication and long division problems are tedious. The abacus gives these students a tool to compute mathematical problems that equals the speed and mathematical knowledge required by their sighted peers using pencil and paper. Many blind people find this number machine a useful tool throughout life. 57. See also Chinese Zhujuan, Chizanbob, Logical abacus, Mental abacus, Napier's bones, Sand table, Slide rule, Soroban, Suan Pan. Notes. 1. Both C.J. Gadd, a keeper of the Egyptian and Assyrian antiquities at the British Museum, and Jacob Levi, a Jewish historian who wrote New Hebraistic.
Let's do it 2 parts. The video splits in like 30 seconds. So I remembered it when I was a kid, but I never know how this is working. Yes, I have to do it a little bit fast because the video going to split. That was from the 31 May 2022. Then we have 20 seconds. I will set cheers, have a good day. I will start upload this. And I still need sound saving, but let's keep it in 2 parts. I will change the camcorder, charging,